Storm winds hammered against the airport windows as the late-night terminal buzzed with exhaustion, and a weary single dad clutched his daughter's tiny hand while boarding began for the final flight home. His pulse thudded with the weight of unpaid bills, missed work hours, and the fear of failing the only person who still looked at him like he was a hero. The flight attendant scanned his ticket, and the words, "First class," flashed like a miracle he didn't deserve, a stroke of luck that felt unreal after months of sleeping on a sagging couch and feeding his daughter soup so he could pretend he wasn't hungry. But just as he stepped forward, he saw her, a pregnant woman struggling to breathe, her hands trembling as she leaned against the wall, ignored by the restless crowd. His heart clenched, and without hesitation, he gave up the seat he had dreamed of sinking into, unaware that the woman he helped wasn't just wealthy, she was a billionaire who owned the entire plane he was about to fly on, and his life was about to change in ways he could never imagine. If you believe kindness still matters and second chances find those who deserve them, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to channel name right now. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. He guided his young daughter toward their cramped economy seats, where the armrests were stiff and the legroom barely enough for a tired man's knees. His daughter laid her head on his arm, and he brushed her hair back, trying to mask the ache in his spine and the worry heavy in his chest. He wasn't supposed to be on this flight at all. The only reason he could afford the ticket was because he had sold his last valuable possession, his wedding ring, the one symbol of a promise that had slipped through his fingers when his wife passed away during childbirth. Every day since had been a balancing act of grief, responsibility, and survival, and tonight was no exception. As the engines roared and the plane rose into the clouds, he closed his eyes, praying his daughter would never feel the loneliness he carried like a shadow. What he didn't know was that the pregnant woman he helped was sitting comfortably in the seat that once belonged to him. She watched him from afar, noticing the tenderness with which he cared for his child, the quiet strength in his posture despite exhaustion weighing him down, and the way he smiled at his daughter even when sadness flickered behind his eyes. Her name was Elena, and though the world knew her as the mysterious billionaire CEO behind one of the largest aviation companies on Earth, none knew the truth: she had grown up poor, abandoned, and invisible. Tonight, for the first time in years, someone had given her something not because she was powerful or wealthy, but simply because she needed it. That gesture shook her more deeply than anyone could have imagined. Hours passed, turbulence shook the cabin, and the little girl whimpered in her sleep. The father pulled her close, humming softly, ignoring his own fear. Elena watched as he shielded his child without a second thought, even whispering reassurances no one else could hear. She remembered hiding under blankets during storms, wishing someone would hold her. Tears welled in her eyes, and the baby inside her kicked, reminding her how frightened she was of raising a child alone. She called for a flight attendant and asked quietly about the man, his name, his situation, his story. The attendant, unaware of Elena's identity, simply said he was a single dad coming home after losing his job, traveling to take one last chance at employment before his savings ran out completely. Elena felt something inside her shift, a deep ache mixed with admiration. When the plane landed, passengers rushed out, eager to continue their lives. The father lifted his still, sleepy daughter and walked slowly toward the exit, bracing for the uncertainty awaiting him. But when he reached the end of the tunnel, he was stopped by security, not with suspicion, but with an invitation. Confused and anxious, he followed them into a private lounge where Elena waited, no longer just a passenger but herself, a woman of immense wealth and influence. She thanked him for his kindness, for his sacrifice, and for reminding her what humanity looked like. He stood speechless, unsure if he should bow, apologize, or run. Then she offered him something unimaginable, a job with housing, childcare support, and stability, all because he gave up a seat that most would have guarded selfishly. His legs nearly gave out as emotion surged through him, and his daughter tugged his sleeve, smiling as though she already knew everything would be okay now. Days later, they moved into a beautiful home near Elena's private headquarters. The father worked with dignity again, earning not charity but opportunity. The little girl attended a school she once only saw in movies. Elena visited often, forming a bond with the child and slowly letting herself trust the father who had unknowingly changed her perspective on life. Their shared wounds, loss, abandonment, fear, began to stitch together something resembling hope. Neighbors whispered, newspapers speculated, and employees wondered why a billionaire spent time with an ordinary man, but the truth was simple: kindness had rewritten both of their destinies. The seasons changed, and as Elena welcomed her newborn into the world, the man who once sat in economy stood beside her, not as an employee but as family. The child grew up with two protectors, a big sister who adored her, and a home filled with laughter that once seemed impossible. Sometimes, when storms rattled the windows, the father remembered the night everything changed, and he held both children close, grateful he chose compassion when no one was watching. And Elena often looked at her planes and smiled, knowing that the greatest journey she ever took began not in the sky, but in a simple act of empathy from a stranger who became everything she never knew she needed. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your one click helps keep these emotional stories alive for others who need them. Special request: comment below and tell us, do you believe one act of kindness can change a life forever? And as the video fades out, one message remains: sometimes the smallest sacrifice becomes the greatest miracle, and the people we help without expecting anything in return are often the ones destined to change our lives the most.